The Guardian is reporting on a horrific decision made by the U.S. government involving Chelsea Manning. They say prison officials have sentenced Chelsea Manning to 14 days in solitary confinement following an attempt to kill herself in July. Manning is serving 35 years in prison in Kansas for leaking a vast collection of secret U.S. government documents about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Government officials drew the public's ire after charging Manning with 3 counts of misconduct following the suicide attempt, including 2 which carried possible penalties of indefinite solitary confinement. Quote, "I am feeling hurt. I am feeling lonely. I am embarrassed by the decision. I don't know how to explain it," Chelsea Manning said. All right, so we covered this at the time when Chelsea Manning attempted suicide. And the government is deciding that the best course of action in response to this is punitive. And is to put somebody who was suicidal and potentially still is suicidal in solitary confinement, which is maybe quite literally the worst thing you can do for somebody's mental health. I mean, I've read horrific accounts of people who were in solitary confinement that talk about how they're just not the same and they'll never be the same. Because understand, guys, and neuroscientists have spoken about this, experts have spoken about this, human beings are social animals. You know, if you put them in a cage and you lock them up and you effectively throw away the key and you keep them there for a day or a few days or a fucking week or a month or whatever the fuck it is, if you do that, psychosis is common. You know, people report that when they were in solitary confinement, it changed them so much that, like, if in some instances people, they served their sentence and they were released into the world, and at times when they were within their sentence, they were in solitary confinement, they say there's now a disconnect, and there's now just a lingering, constant paranoia that they have about humanity and about the world, and it's damaging, man. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know how they say, like, some psychologists say when you're a kid, there are things that shape your life, and there are events that can have a lasting impact on you. Well, apparently for kids or adults, if you put them in a room and you keep them away from human contact and it's open-ended and they don't know when the fuck it's going to be over and stuff like that, it's easy to see how you can fucking go crazy. It's easy to, if I was in a situation like that, I would be surprised if I didn't go crazy. If I didn't lose contact with reality. If I didn't have a long-lasting impact on how if that didn't have an impact on how I viewed the world, and, it seems like a traumatic experience. I mean, this is something that some experts say is just flat-out torture. Solitary confinement by its very nature is torture. It's just torture. So somebody who attempted suicide, so obviously there's an issue there. There's a psychological issue, there's a psychiatric or mental issue there that needs to be addressed and needs to be treated. They're going about it the exact wrong way. They're saying, no, let's compound that. Let's make it worse. Let's be punitive. And what the fuck do you think is going to happen? You put her behind bars and you do solitary confinement. What's the potential upside of this? There is no potential upside to this. It's just this feeling of like revenge or retribution for you trying to hurt yourself. That's so not allowed that now we're going to make you feel even more pain and suffering, which was the cause of the attempted suicide in the first place, that you're feeling pain and suffering. It defies all logic and all reason. And yeah, certainly if solitary confinement on its own is not torture, which I think there's a good case that it is, well, then this is, of course, torture. Take somebody who's already has pre-existing mental issues, and you say, I'm going to put you in solitary confinement. That's got to be torture. That's got to be torture. So this is the government acting punitive, acting disgusting. I think it's a violation of human rights, and I'm happy that the ACLU and other human rights organizations are speaking out against this. And, Chelsea Manning is expressing it herself. Now, I think 7 days of it are suspended, and 7 days they reserve the right to put her in solitary whenever they want for 7 days. It's a bad idea, man. And look, if something ends up happening again with Chelsea Manning where she tries to hurt herself, kill herself again, this is going to be a big part of it. Again, is somebody in a situation like this, they need more help, not less help, not a more punitive action. They need aid, they need comfort, they need therapy, they need drugs, they need, a way to try to attack this issue that they have. Instead, you're doing the opposite. You're putting it in reverse. You're going in the wrong direction, and you're making it much more likely that they have another episode and that, she may try to take her life again. So this is a disgusting action, and this is something that we should all oppose, regardless of what you think about what, Chelsea Manning did. I happen to believe she's a hero. She released information that showed the U.S. government massacring civilians, doing double taps with drone strikes. Oh, look, we killed people who, we thought it was, somebody in the Taliban, but it turns out it was somebody in the media holding a camera. It wasn't a gun. And then, look, the ambulance showed up, and we blew up the ambulance too. So she releases this saying, hey, the American people have a right to know. This shouldn't be classified. This shouldn't be top secret. We should know what's happening with our tax dollars in our name. So she releases that, says you have a constitutional right to know this. They lock her up. Again, I agree with her. I think she's a hero, but some people don't agree with her. Fine. But on this issue, this is not how the government should react in this instance, and you need to agree with that. Because there's no even mildly convincing argument that this is the right course of action given the facts we have.